It's 7:30 in the morning, and this episode is brought to you by the country of Austria. Unfortunately, the people are currently a bit sad because, they lost during the Euro 24 and had to leave the competition. Nevertheless, they're very proud. They take it in their stride, and they are looking towards the bright future of Austrian football. We will talk about sustainability today. We will talk about some true crime stories, some that recently just have been on this podcast, actually. And we will talk about the pride of England passing 1,000 vineyards last year. And in the end, we will clarify how expensive the Oktoberfest will be this year and what the dinosaurs have to do with wine growing. Have fun. Welcome to the Pinot and Pixel podcast episode number 172, July 6th, Saturday, after the quarterfinals of the Euro 2024. Because I'm recording this on Friday morning, I have no clue who has won, but of course, I'm really hoping for Germany and, difficult question, Portugal or Netherlands? And Portugal to reach the semifinals. And England is playing Switzerland as well. And of course, fingers crossed for England, even though Switzerland was the better team till today. So let's see what will happen in the other quarterfinals. We will talk about some football-related news in a second, but we will start with some true crime stories. And the first true crime story is referencing to the story we recently had on the pod in February. If you can't remember it, there was this situation where a person entered a winery and opened the tanks, and it was over 60,000 liters in a winery in Spain. And after a couple of months, they finally found the person. It's a woman that has been a former employee of the company, and she was just laid off, 2 or 3 weeks before this happened. Finally she was caught. The police found the woman, arrested her. There was some footage on camera, and in the end, they would take her to court. And it's a bit sad, of course, for the company. We don't know what really happened, why she was so sad and so angry that she just wanted to do harm for the sake of harm and not for anything else. 60,000 liters of the most expensive wines of the company, and the company also suffered economically from this issue. I guess even if she would be charged for paying for the harm, could be tough to get the money. In the end, once again, the criminals were caught. And talking about caught criminals, our second case as well, a UK fraudster has been sentenced for 200,000 euros to pay and 3 years in prison. And what he did was, there was a huge wine and whiskey scheme going on over the last years in the US, with a total worth or a total loss of $13 million US. The 27-year-old guy who did this, his name is Casey Alexander, he was sentenced to 3 years of probation to pay 200,000 euro. It's not much compared to the 13 million, but at least I guess it's everything he has at the moment. And in addition, he has to go to prison. In total, there were 150 victims all over the US. And basically what he did is he offered victims shares in very expensive whiskey and wine collections through a fund. But of course, he has never had any wine or whiskey. It was just a fraud, a scam. And he was caught by the FBI. The FBI did some investigations on that. And then finally he was caught. He was sentenced, and right now he's in prison, or he will go to prison. Once again, of course, maybe some of you, when we talk about true crime in the wine industry, are looking towards some interesting stories where the people were able to escape, or there was some fancy stuff going on. But I'm more a fan of stories like that, because in the end it shows that usually, especially with the technology we can use today, cameras, with AI, with mass data, it's easier to catch people like them, and it has gotten harder to get away with crime. And that's a good thing. And not only for wine, but in general, I really like this development, actually. If there is not people available for damages, then it's nature. And we have talked about the big wildfires in California recently. There were big wildfires as well in Oregon in 2020, with a loss of, I don't know, over 5,000 hectares or so. And many, many wineries struggled to deal with or to sell their smoke-tainted wine. Because what happened is when you have the wildfires in the vineyard, usually the grape skins act like kind of a semi-permeable membrane, and they just soak in the smoke taint. And in the end, it tastes like smoked grapes, actually. And of course, you get those flavors as well in the resulting wine. And some people might not be interested in buying wine like that. And some wineries struggled with this. And right now, there's one winery who had a really crazy marketing idea. They turned their smoke-tainted red wine into a barbecue sauce. And I mean, what is the market for barbecue sauce? It's the US market, of course. And they started producing 5,000 bottles of the Pinot Noir barbecue sauce with smoke-tainted Pinot Noir. It's a brilliant idea, actually, sitting on the shelf for around $12. Of course, it's not a replacement for the bottle sitting between 80 to 200 euro per bottle. But in the end, at least, they found a way to reuse their wine. And actually, I'm a Pinot fan. I would buy this sauce. I don't know if I can get this in California when I will be in the US in August, but the idea is just brilliant. I mean, it's kind of an upcycling of a product you will probably never be able to sell. So I really like the idea. And in addition, they will donate 5% of the proceeds from the barbecue sauce to the Dayton Fire District, who basically was fighting against the fire in 2020. I really love the idea. Hopefully, this is the blueprint for more companies to think differently, think out of the box, and find a solution for a problem where other people would tell you you're not able to solve it. I really like it. Talking about sustainability, upcycling, and so, big announcement from France. Maison Joseph Drouin, so big Burgundy producer, announced that he will ship his next delivery of 15,000 bottles of Chablis with a sailboat from France to the US. This will take about 2 weeks. The carbon footprint of this delivery is reduced by 90%. It's absolutely amazing. And of course, if you're not in time trouble getting your wine to your customer or to your wholesaler or whatever, you can use ways like that. And I mean, 2 weeks is fairly a longer time compared to a, I don't know, 12 hours flight. But if it doesn't have to be there the next day, it could be a really good alternative. And it's a sailboat, 80 meters long, suitable for 1,100 tons of wine, 800,000 bottles you can put in a sailboat, on a sailboat like that. And the carbon footprint is stunning compared to traveling by car, lorry, and then plane. Joseph Drouin has been famous for his sustainable approach, sustainable viticulture, the first Burgundy house to adopt organic and biodynamic farming in the 1980s, I guess. Yeah, in the 1980s. They were using lighter bottles with the beginning of 2008. So they have this sustainable approach. They are also thinking outside of the box. And especially when it comes to traveling, where the carbon footprint is huge, this is a really good alternative. So absolutely great move. And this should also be a blueprint for wineries, especially shipping to overseas. When we talk about the best wine lists in the world, it's an article from Falstaff, because recently the best wine lists in the world were announced. It's an article in German, but I translated it with Google Translate. Before I read the article, I was thinking what cities I would expect in this list. Not talking about restaurants, because there's some very, very famous restaurants in the world, but I was thinking about what cities I would expect. And I would definitely think of Hong Kong, New York, probably London, and maybe one Scandinavian city. And the list, I mean, I don't know if how they were selected and stuff like that, but the list is super impressive to read, actually. Just reading out the panel was just crazy, but reading out the cities: Bangkok, Thailand; New York City, Copenhagen, Tandalen, Sweden, Copenhagen; Voss, Norway; New York City, Bangkok, Thailand; and Munich, Germany. And the guy from Germany who won the Gold Star for the best newcomer list is Justin Leone. We talked about his concept Sticks and Stones, which I really liked because he's offering many, many wines by the glass because he just uses the Caravan system. And it's not just entry-level wines, it's grade wines as well. And of course, through this system, he's able to provide a very, very good, well-selected wine list. And this is maybe the reason why he won the best newcomer wine list prize. But I was quite surprised that there is so many restaurants, especially from Scandinavia, on the list. I mean, their food culture, depending on the country, is diverse. Let's put it like this. But Copenhagen definitely is one of the cities, and New York is in there as well, and Bangkok. That wasn't on my map at all. Did you expect Bangkok to be on that list? I didn't. I will put the link in the show notes because it's also interesting to read, and of course it's more interesting to check out the wine lists from those restaurants with a huge diversity of new wines, old wines, natural wines, alcohol-free alternatives. Impressive. Link in the show notes. Coming from the best wine lists in the world to a product that has suffered from a bad reputation over the last, I would say, 50 years, heading towards fine dining gastronomy. Buckfast. If you don't know what Buckfast is an entry-level alcoholic drink. Basically, it's a fortified wine with tonic and caffeine. It's the product we talked about with Tommy in the episode about Langham and Tommy Grimshaw, 163, if I remember it correctly, maybe 165. So during our English Wine Weeks, I had this interview with Tommy Grimshaw, and he told me he's a fan of Buckfast because Buckfast, everyone in the UK grew up with Buckfast because it's. Sometimes you have the feeling that it's the entry-level drug or something like this because everybody knows this brand, has had it recently or whatever. And just to give you some numbers, each year they sell over 5 million bottles of Buckfast with a revenue of 50 million pounds per year, just of Buckfast. And there's also some other statistics, but I want to give you a quote from Wikipedia. There's an article that has collected the best nicknames for Buckfast because of its reputation. Wreck the Hoose Juice, Commotion Lotion, Cumbernauld Rocket Fuel, and right now it's getting funny, Bucky Barracus, Coatbridge Table Wine, Jakey Juice, and a bottle of What the Hell Are You Looking At? And it has earned the unofficial slogan, Buckfast gets you fucked fast. So the reputation is there. And according to a statistic, this is also quite funny, 30% of people that have committed crime had Buckfast before they did it. 43%. Maybe it's something to get braver or so. I have no clue. But of course, this all resulted in the reputation it currently has. And right now, there is a Michelin star chef, and he wants to lift this reputation and take Buckfast to Michelin star restaurants. And he offers several dishes where he uses Buckfast as an ingredient, tries to push this image. Actually, I don't know what is driving him, but he said, quote, Buckfast is an amazing ingredient for both sweet and savory dishes, and I'm blown away by the results we are achieving whilst experimenting with this product. Okay, what is he cooking with Buckfast? For all the chefs out there, he has an onion tart tatin. Then in the end, there's also let's call it a boozy brownie, where the base product, the dough, is made with Buckfast. When you're used to cook with wine, you usually learn that the higher the quality of the meal, the higher the quality of the products you use, especially the wine, should be. There is this rumor where when people say, oh, this wine is gone, I only use it for cooking. You shouldn't. I mean, if you want to cook with wine, you should use a high quality product. And I mean, it depends from person to person. If you don't want to throw it away, of course, you can pour it in your salad as a dressing or so. But talking about star kitchen, Michelin star kitchen. It's tough to me. It's tough for me to imagine how this could taste really good. But I will give it a try if I will have the possibility to cook with Buckfast. Maybe Tommy, if when we meet each other next time, let's have a dinner. I mean, you're a great chef. Let's have a dinner with Buckfast, using it for cooking. Could be an interesting idea. Yeah, and try it on your own, guys, if you want to. Wow. We will stay in the UK. The UK has announced that they recently reached the magical barrier of over 1,000 vineyards in England. And this announcement was part of this annual industry report. We talked about this several times, and I will put the link in the show notes. And what you can see is that they just passed the vineyards by 30, so 1,030 vineyards right now in the US, resulting in 4,200 hectares. This is what we already talked about. Talking about 10 years in total, it's 123% plus. What is also interesting is usually the split of still versus sparkling is sitting around 70 sparkling, 30 still. And talking about the last 10 years, it usually was around this, so 68-32, 69-31. And this year, for the first time, the split is 76 sparkling and 23 still. So sparkling gained a huge amount, and the percentage swapped towards sparkling. I mean, there is several reasons for this, because there is a huge reputation for sparkling, and many wineries and producers entered also the market producing more sparkling wine, because what you can also see is that the Charmat method usually was sitting around 3% in total, right now is sitting around 7%. Yeah, so this rise is also resulting in more, or caused by more Charmat method wines. I won't say entry-level sparkling wines, but an alternative, a cheaper alternative, more affordable alternative to English sparkling traditional method. What is also quite interesting is 10% plus in sold bottles, so sitting around 8.8 million in 2023. And the share, the sales channel split is 17% cellar door, 11% winery visit. So 28% in total just direct to consumer. This is less than last year in total. And when you look at the shares of the size compared to the size of the wineries, of course, especially the micro and the small wineries really profit from cellar door sales and wine tourism and stuff like that. And the bigger the company gets, of course, the more focus is on trade and off trade, and of course also export, because what you can basically see is that medium sized companies up to 30,000 bottles a year, they don't have any export, because it's tough, it's challenging, it's expensive as well. There's many laws to pass, and of course you don't have the amount of bottles to sell abroad. That is really an interesting model, especially for importers. Put the link in the show notes. I really like the data, especially because it's quite on point usually, and I like the graphics as well. We will talk about this in the future. So congrats to England. Another rise. We will see substantial growth over the next 10 years, my personal opinion, because they don't have to restrict their growth following European Union rules, because they are not part of the EU anymore. So we will see substantial growth over the next decade. And right now we will talk about the very, very important question: what has wine to do with dinosaurs? And the transition is absolutely great, because one of my favorite winemakers from the UK, Sarah Massey, she has been on this podcast already. She's a big fan of dinosaurs, and I immediately sent her the article when I read it. And I mean, it's a bit tough to get the causality of this, but I mean, it's interesting anyway, because I'm a fan of dinosaurs, I'm a fan of history, and yeah, just to give you some context, there were three, but there were two very, very big mass extinctions over the last 250 million years. The first one was 250 million years ago, the border to the Triassic age, where 96% of all creatures, plants, everything died because there were huge volcano eruptions in former Siberia. And 66 million years ago, there was another mass extinction, which when I was younger, there wasn't a hint. I mean, they were still speculating on how this has happened. When I was, 15 years old in the 90s, there was no, there were many clues, but they were talking about aliens, they were talking about volcanoes, they were talking about asteroids. There were so many possible reasons for the mass extinction that finally resulted in every dinosaur dying and the rise of the mammals and the plants which we're knowing today. So 66 million years ago, today we know that a huge asteroid that was found in Mexico was probably responsible for this mass extinction, which also killed all the dinosaurs and many, many plants that have been living to this time. And researchers found grape seeds that are 60 million years old. So the ancestors of Vitis vinifera, let's put it like this, 60 million years ago. And the only reason why they were able to grow in a way that they were was because there were no dinosaurs anymore. And it sounds a bit awkward, but just to quote the article, essentially, grapes were able to thrive because dinosaurs were no longer present to stamp on plants, trample through trees, and destroy the plant life of the forest. And there were big guys, like the very big, the herbivores, Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus, but there were also the other guys hunting those dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus or Allosaurus, and there were also the tiny ones. So there were so many breeds, there were so many different types of dinosaurs, but of course, maybe they didn't respect the plant life of the forest, and maybe there has been Vitis vinifera 100 million years ago, who knows, but the oldest clues we have for wine, for grapes, for vines, is from 60 million years ago, and this could be the beginning of modern wine growing, guys. The interesting thing about the fossil or the first plants of Vitis vinifera is that it was not a plant like we know it today, let's call it a tiny tree that we grow, that is cultivated by humans. Actually, it was plants that was climbing trees and just hanging down. I don't know if this is the right translation, but we know them from the rainforest, lianas, so that the plants are just, they're climbing up trees and then they're hanging down, and you can pick the fruits or whatever you want. From the history of wine to the recent history of beer. Two more news. One is the question that I would say at least 20% of the people on the planet are interested in: how expensive will the mass beer be at Oktoberfest? And if you're not familiar with this, the Oktoberfest is the biggest festival on earth when it comes to tradition, combined with beer drinking and some carousels and stuff like that. For me, it's more like a huge touristic party, and it's gotten so expensive that I stopped going there when the mass reached 12 euros, so you have to pay 12 euro for a liter of beer. And this year they will break the magical barrier of 15 euro for the first time. So just to give you some numbers, the mass beer, so the liter, will sit between 13.60 and 15.30 depending on the tent you're in. And you also have to pay 10 euro for a liter of water and 12 euro for a liter of Spezi. So quite expensive actually. And in addition, of course, there will be you will see a rise in the prices of the food as well, because there has been this change with the VAT at the beginning of 2024. So it's not 7% anymore, it's 19% right now. And of course, they argue that they have to add at least 12%, if not 15%, to the food. So if you're interested in a chicken, so the traditional handle, or bratwurst or stuff like that, you have to calculate that it will be more expensive than last year, sitting around 15% plus. The Oktoberfest will start on September 21st and will go up to October 6th, so 16 days this time. Book your hotels, guys, if you want to go there. And last but not least, because we also love to talk about marketing coups on this podcast, my favorite one so far this year We have talked about the situation with beers in the stadiums of the European Championship 2024, because I mean you're allowed to buy beer, but only normal strength beer or lower strength beer when England is playing. Of course, you can buy spezi, lemonade, juice, water, stuff like that. But what you're always able to spot is if your favorite team scores a goal, hundreds of people are throwing the bins. And I mean, it's I don't know, what is it, 5 or 10 euro you would receive if you give it back, but they don't care, so they just throw their bins. And Carlsberg published a hat that protects you from flying pints. Isn't that cool? We've all seen the videos of flying pints in pub, or of course also those outdoor scenes or in the stadium, and when your favorite team scores. And Carlsberg says, okay, we will have a hat that protects you from getting soaked. And I really like the idea. And you cannot buy this. You were able to apply through a follow-up of their social media page and the comment of your favorite goal of the last 20 to 30 years when England scored and when you threw your bin. It ended on July 4th on Thursday. I took part, and let's see what will happen. My favorite goal of England, it's a bit sad, but it was the goal of Harry Kane in 2020 in Wembley Stadium against Germany. But there were many bins flying around. And basically, I love the idea. It's good marketing. It's very cheap marketing because I mean, in the end, we're talking about 100 hats. You get huge social media attention, and it's also the thing we humans like. It's playing in a humorous way, in a funny way, with things that might be funny and sometimes might not. Yeah, and of course it gives attention to the brand, and it's closely related to beer and stuff. I just like the idea, and I will let you know what happened in the end, if I won or not. And if I want such a hat, I will wear it the next time I'm recording the podcast when I've received it. Promise. So guys, this is it for this week. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the weather. Enjoy the second part of the quarterfinals of the Euro 2024. Fingers crossed for your favorite team. England, Switzerland, Turkey, and the Netherlands. Oh, in the beginning I said Netherlands versus Portugal. Portugal is playing against... Damn it, who's... France! Oh my goodness. Yeah, Portugal, France. Okay, my heart is beating for France. So I would love to see France in the semifinals. Yes. That's it, guys. Have a great weekend. See you on Wednesday. Ciao, ciao.